record. In number 10, to a phosphoric acid solution, which is H3PO4, that has a concentration of 0.1. We progressively add concentrated sodium hydroxide. Now, this is basically when they tell you that they're adding sodium hydroxide, what's happening in the sodium hydroxide is reacting with the acid. So هيدا بنفهمها أكتر when we explain titrations. Okay, when we explain titrations, we will understand the reaction with sodium hydroxide better. For now, just focus. And you started with a phosphoric acid solution that is 0.1 molar, and you change the pH of this phosphoric acid until you reach 9.5. Without any changes in volume. وأكيد when we start with titrations you will know to change the pH of an acid, what you do is you titrate it. Why? Because you have a reaction between the acid and the base, and depending on the extent of this reaction, is it, let's say, complete. Titrations are always complete, but did you say because you have H3PO4 انتوا بس قمتوا ال H3PO4 او رحتوا على ال H2PO4 minus او على ال HPO4 2 minus? This we will explain in titration. For now, what you need to understand is if we have this solution and we change its pH until we reach 9.5, what are the species at this 9.5? So we basically have to understand how the pH changes in correspondence with the species that we have. أو العكس, if we change the pH, how are the species changing? We have to understand the predominance of H3PO4 and then calculate the species. So let's start with the predominance of H3PO4. خلينا نكتب line. Okay, you can follow on the slide because everything I'm going to say is also on the slide. بس ركزوا معي هون. So let's start with a pH line. Okay, this is your pH line. Your pH line starts from when you have only H3PO4 at 0.1 molar. هيدي ال initial point. بهيدي البوينت كان عندي أنا H3PO4 0.1 molar, but this does not mean إنه ما عندي شيء تاني بالإضافة ل H3PO4, because as soon as you put this in your solution, it reaches equilibrium. Upon equilibrium, you will have other species. So مش هحط أنا الconcentration ولا هحط the species. هقول this is the beginning of the line. The line begins H3PO4. لا خليني أبعدها شوي. هنكتبها هون. The line begins with H3PO4, and this H3PO4 reaches equilibrium إذا أنا بدي أحطها بهالطريقة with HPO4 أكيد H2 sorry minus with H3O plus. هيدي منا titration. This is not the reaction of H3PO4 مع HO minus. This is not related to the question. هيدا قصدي. This is not related to the question. It continues with H2PO4 minus my H2O to give you HPO4 2 minus with H3O plus HPO4 2 minus with H2O to give you PO4 3 minus and H3O plus. I needed to remember something. I needed to remember that all reactions, they have pKa1, pKa2, pKa3. I also need you to remember that every step is controlled by a Henderson-Hasselbalch. Okay, so من step 1 pH pKa1 plus log H2PO4 minus divided by H3PO4. In step 2 أكيد ال pHs are not different. pH is 9.5. ما بهم which pKa are you using. The pH is 9.5. The pH is pKa2 plus log HPO4 2 minus divided by H2PO4 minus pH pKa3 plus log PO4 3 minus divided by HPO4 2 minus. Henderson Hasselbalch dissociation reactions هيدول you know them. These are not related to the question unless I put instead of the pH 9.5. إذا بدل ال pH بحط 9.5 كون بلشت بالquestion. Okay? What's happening? What happens is you have H3PO4. You're changing the pH. How are you changing the pH? By adding HO minus. The reaction of any acid, whether it's weak or strong, with a strong base has to be complete. هذا هو الconcept. Reactions with strong, they are complete. Do you understand شو صار هون? Instead of H2O, I reacted H3PO4 with HO minus. The HO minus, which is a base, will take one of the protons من ال H3PO4 to give you H2PO4 minus. The only difference is that this difference between هيدي وال H2O إنه this reaction is complete. Okay, let's call this A. Now, continue. Continue. خدوا whatever is remaining in your solution اللي هو ال H2PO4 minus. Again, reacted with a strong base اللي هو HO minus. The strong base will take one more proton من ال H2PO4 minus وحيعطيكم H2O, and what's left is HPO4 2 minus. Let's call this B. Then خدوا ال PO4 3 minus, HPO4 2 minus with another HO minus to give you PO4 3 minus and H2O. This is C. The question is, how much HO minus did you add and at what stage are you in? Reactions are complete, yes. What if instead of adding, افترضوا إنه for this one, for one H3PO4, you need one HO minus. For one H2PO4, you need one HO minus to completely destroy it, neutralize it. For one HPO42 minus, you need one HO minus to completely destroy all the acids. هدول 3 كلهم acids. To completely destroy. We don't usually say destroy, we say neutralize. بس أنا عم بحاول أوصلكم الفكرة. To completely neutralize all the acids, you need to add 3 HO minus ليبين عندكم البase, which is PO43 minus. Now, how much HO minus did you add? That's the question. You don't know how much HO minus you added. All you know is that you reached from this process. انتوا ما بتعرفوا إذا انتوا بالنص بالأول ولا بالآخر. So هيدا البروسيس عبارة عن line. انتوا ما بتعرفوا your position in this line when. All you know is that you are at the position where pH is equal to 9.5. هذا هو البوزيشن اللي لكم. From this pH sorry, but where am I? From this pH أنا بدي أعرف بأي position موجودة, what are the species in that position, and what is the predominant in all your species using that pH. To do that, we have to know how to separate the predominance domain. We have to know how to separate this predominance domain. So أنا قلت لكم, for a predominance domain you have distinct points. في عندكم points واضحين. هيدول البوينتس هنكتبهم بالرد أو هنكتبهم بالبلو. هن basically ال PKA1, ال PKA2 وال PKA3. شو معناتها when your pH is at PKA1? This is the initial point. Okay? What does it mean when you say your pH is equal to PKA1? طلعوا هون. زالوا على الهندرسون هاسلباك وانتبهوا هون. When your pH is equal to your PKA1, it means that your base H2PO4 minus is equal to H3PO4 minus. على هيدي البوينت it means that H3PO4 is equal to H2PO4 minus. رجعوا طلعوا بهندرسون هاسلباك. قبل ال PKA minus مين بيكون الكبير؟ مين predominant before PKA1؟ يعني ال pH is less than PKA1. For pH to be less than PKA1, the pH has to be PKA1 minus a certain value. Minus a certain value بتيجي من اللوج. It means بتكون ال H3PO4 أكبر. Because you need a fraction. Before PKA1, you are in the region where H3PO4 predominates. It is the major. هنقول عنها region 1. هذا مش معناته إنه ما عندكم إلا ال H3PO4. عندكم something else with H3PO4. You have something else with H3PO4. شو هو هذا something else with H3PO4? H2PO4 minus. So أنا بالريجن لل PKA1 في عندي two species بالتحديد. ال H3PO4 وال H2PO4 minus. اثنيناتهم موجودين قبل ال PKA بس بيكون ال H3PO4 predominant. اثنيناتهم موجودين بعد ال PKA1 but this time it's H2PO4 minus that is dominant. So هون you establish a region 2 where H2PO4 minus is the dominant. لأيمتى بتضل؟ هون الفكرة. When does H2PO4 minus change؟ خلينا نضلنا ب region 1 و region 2 ونغير colors. نحن قلنا بال1 H3PO4 is dominant وبيكون معه ال H2PO4 minus. كيف بالضبط؟ بالريجن 1 ال H3PO4 بيكون عم بيتغير من 100 to 50. ال H2PO4 minus بلش 0 وعم بيطلع لل 50. Where is the 50 point؟ هيدي هي. When both of them are equal. Try to think of it. H3PO4 is reacting with the HO minus. H3PO4 بلشنا 100% and it's going down. 90 80. مين عم بيبين قبيله؟ ال H2PO4 minus until you reach a point when both of them are equal. What is the point when both of them are equal? This is pKa1. When both of them are equal to each other, you are at pH equal pKa1. كفوا. After pH equal pKa1, what happens in H2 PO4 minus will go from 50 to 100, وال H3 PO4 هتروح من ال 50 لل 0. أنا أبدا ما بيكون قصدي 0 يعني real 0%. أوكي، بس للشرح. طيب at what point will H3PO4 be 0 and H2PO4 minus be 100? At what point? When all you have in your system is H2PO4 minus, what is the pH? It's the middle. It's the middle point. The midpoint. خلينا ناخد ال midpoint. Let's say it's this one. هنعطيها color. Okay. At this midpoint شو عندكم؟ At this midpoint. Okay. هنروح لفوق. At this midpoint, all you have is H2PO4 minus, and the pH is half pKa1 plus pKa2. Okay. half أكيد بالكل. At this midpoint. شو عم بصير after this midpoint? What's happening after this midpoint? At this exact point, the H3PO4 is now 0. The H2PO4 minus is 100. شو بدكن بلشوا؟ بدكن بلشوا بالsecond step, بالB, where H2PO4 minus is now being consumed ويبين محلها ال HPO4 2 minus. So after this point, the H2PO4 minus من ال 100 لل 50 وال HPO4 2 minus من 0 to 50. Now H2PO4 minus is decreasing. H2PO4 minus is actually decreasing to 50. You have the appearance of HPO4 2 minus. When will these two be equal? When will HPO4 2 minus and H2PO4 minus be equal? At pKa2. At this point, the H2PO4 minus is equal to HPO4 2 minus. إذا أنا بكفي بعد هيدي البوينت، على هيدي البوينت صاروا اثنيناتهم 50. كفوا بعدها. شو بده يصير بعد هالبوينت؟ ال H2PO4 بدها تكفي تقل. It will keep decreasing. بعد هيدي البوينت ال H2PO4 minus will continue decreasing from 50 to 0, while HPO4 2 minus will continue increasing from 50 to 100. بهيدي الريجن مين is now predominant؟ مين is the major؟ مين طلع فوق ال 50؟ It's HPO4 2 minus. So بthis region HPO4 2 minus is now the predominant. It stays predominant بكل الريجن لأنه حتبلش من ال 50 لل 100 وحترجع تشترك third reaction and goes from 100 to 50. So in all of this region it is predominant. نفس الشيء مثل قبل. It's predominant in all this region. So at أي point will H2PO4 minus be 0 and will HPO4 2 minus be 100? At what point will HPO4 2 minus be the only species in your system? And also that is the midpoint. كمان المidpoint. At this midpoint, all you have هيدا المidpoint انتوا عندكم only HPO4 2 minus 100%. Then the pH is equal to half. مين ال pKa's اللي موجودين بهيدا الكابل؟ طلعوا على الكابل. This couple اللي هو ال HPO4 exists in B and in C، يعني in pKa2 and pKa3. This is where it exists. So that is pKa2 plus pKa3. This is basically how you find the pH of amphoteric, of a solution containing amphoteric. And this is this point. At this point, you only have HPO4 2 minus. Next step, logically, in the HPO4 2 minus will start to decrease from 100. The HPO4 2 minus كانت 100, it will start to decrease until it reaches 50. مين بين حدا؟ مين بين؟ Because now على هيدا البوينت H2PO4 is 0. مين بده يبين؟ اللي بده يبين هو ال PO4 3 minus. It will start from 0 and go to 50 until you reach a point when both of them are 50. When are they 50? أيمتى both of them are 50? At pKa3. At pKa3, HPO4 2 minus is equal to PO4 3 minus. Both of them are 50. شو بده يصير بعد هيدي البوينت؟ بدكم تكفوا. انتوا بلشتوا من ال H3PO4 دليتكم تنقصوا لو وصلتوا لل H2PO4 minus. دليتكم تنقصوا لو وصلتوا لل HPO4 2 minus. كمان دليتكم تنقصوا until you reach 100% PO4 3 minus. So the next step هو ال PO4 3 minus will start from 50. هيدي هي ال point of 50 and go to 100 while HPO4 2 minus 50 to 0. And this is the predominance domain of H3A, of all H3A, all of them. Okay? You need to study this domain once, twice, 3 times. مش من أول مرة حتفهموه. لحالكم بدكم تحاولوا تسووا هيدا اللاين اللي أنا سويته. Okay? To see how it changes. Start from a mono. ارجعوا اشتغلوا بالداي ارجعوا روحوا للتراي. If you understand the mono and the die, you can do the try. So the question says, now back to the original question. The question says, what happens at pH equal 9.5? What is the major species at pH equal 9.5? The first thing that you need to do is find hidden 9.5. Find it. Okay? What is the value of pKa1? دايما بيعطونا نفس الشيء. أكيد 2.1. خلينا نرجع بس ل exercise 10. رجعوا ل exercise 10 لل pKa's that are given. So pKa1 هي 2.2. اتفقنا؟ pKa2 is 7.2. pKa3 is 12. Okay, and this time it's given as 12.3. Usually it's given as not 12.3. Okay, and it's 12.3. Into when? 9.5. 9.5 هي between 7.2 و 12.3. Okay, between 7.2 and 12.3. في عندكم an inflection point between 7.2 and 12.3. في عندكم a point لما السبيشيز بيتغيروا. مين هي هالpoint؟ The midpoint. The midpoint between هيدول التو is half pKa2 plus half pKa3 اللي هي 9.75. 9.75 into this region. هنحط لها color. You are in this region. بهيدي region it's okay. بهيدي region HPO4 2- is the major. بس مين حده؟ What is the species that is next to HPO4 2-? Is it H2PO4 or PO4 3-? This is why you need that midpoint. So this is 9.75. You are at 9.5. Your position is right here. هذا your position. With this position at 9.5, the predominant species clearly is HPO4 2-. هذا the predominant species. Okay, but since 9.5 is before the midpoint يلي هي half pKa2 plus pKa3 اللي هي 9.75, then the other species is H2PO4-. بعدكم ما قطعتوا لا third reaction. So basically into you're stuck in the second step. Okay, into you're stuck in the second step. In step B. With the major species, يعني species that will have the most concentration is HPO4 2-. بعده حيكون ال HPO4 2-. بعده حيكون ال H2PO4-. So now you have to find basically just the species concentration. To do this, بكل بساطة, establish a relation and find the solution. As long as you know you are stuck in the second step, تعرفوا لوين تقدروا توصلوا. لنبلش now بالquestion. هلا لنبلش بالquestion. I know إنه I am stuck in the second okay. I am stuck in the second step. So what happens? أول step سميناهم A و B. خلينا بال A وال B. H3PO4 مع HO- to give you H2PO4- with H2O. You're not in this predominant domain. هيدا predominant domain بيمتد من ال initial point لل midpoint. أول midpoint اللي has green color. Okay. خلينا نغير ال color of this one. Okay. أول midpoint that has a green color. This is the domain of أول step. You're not in it. So the entire amount of H3PO4, which is 0.1, هذا اللي كان initially, has to be consumed. At the end, this will be approximately 0. This will be approximately 0. No, wait. 0.1 أكيد. Okay. This will be 0.1. هذا I don't care. You have to finish the first step. Into you know you are stuck in the second step. If you are stuck in the second step, then H2PO4- with HO- بتعطينا HPO4 2- and H2O. Initially هيدي كانت 0.1. هيدي now it's unknown. I know that it completely erased the first step, بس أنا ما بعرف قديش اشتغلت ب second step. Did it erase half of them, all of them, 70%, 80%? I don't know yet. So this is unknown. At the end, this will lose an unknown value اللي أنا حكيت عنها هون، خليني سميها x لأنه it's very easy to say the unknown is x. هيدي it will lose this x to be 0 لأنه when it is 0 the reaction stops. This will gain x. This is the predominant step. This is the step that you are actually in. هيدي هي الستep اللي خلت ال pH تكون 9.5. From this step أنا في أقول at pH equals 9.5 I also know that this pH is equal to pKa 2 plus log HPO4 2 minus divided by H2PO4 minus. The pH I have it, it's 9.5. The pKa I also have it, it's what, 7.2. دي أخدناها 7.2. I need these two. بين هيدول الاثنين this will be the greater one لأنه it's the predominant. Okay, the HPO4 2 minus will be the greater one because it's the predominant. So what do I do now? I have two unknowns. What I do have is mass conservation. Since V is constant, you did not change the volume. You can say if you change the volume تشتغلوا with the new concentration. If you don't change the volume, start with the original concentration or number of mole, it doesn't matter. Number of mole لل H3PO4 is equal to the number of mole of all the species اللي باينوا منهم يلي هن ال H3PO4 remaining plus number of mole لل H2PO4 minus plus the number of mole لل HPO4 2 minus plus the number of mole لل PO4 3 minus. الفكرة since the volume is constant بلا ما دلني أنا أشتغل بالnumber of mole move to concentration. أصلا you don't have the number of mole and you don't have the volume. All you know that it's constant. Then write the mass conservation in terms of concentration. Initial يلي هي 0.1 is equal to the concentration of H3PO4 remaining in solution plus the concentration of H2PO4 minus plus the concentration of HPO4 2 minus plus the concentration of PO4 3 minus at 9.5. The predominant species are HPO4 2 minus and with it H2PO4 minus. I can neglect these two. They're not zero. I can neglect them with respect. Then this is equal to HPO4 minus plus HPO4 2 minus. So now we have two equations with two unknowns. في عندكم إنه ال H2PO4 minus plus ال HPO4 2 minus equal to 0.1 وفي عندكم from this أنا بكتب ال HPO4 2 minus divided by H2PO4 minus is equal to 10. Okay, is equal 10 to the power 9.5 minus 7.2, which is خلينا نكتبها دغري, which is basically 2.3. You have two equations with two unknowns. Simply solve the two equations. That's it. يعني for this one, you can put 0.1 is equal to H2PO4 minus plus محل ال HPO4 2 minus فيه يحط 10 to the power 2.3 times H2PO4 minus. Then H2PO4 minus is equal to, it has to be less than كتير 0.1. So خليني أجيب الأول ال HPO4 2 minus, this will be approximately 0.0995. Okay, and this will be around 4.98 times 10 to the power negative 4 molar. مين اللي predominant بكل وضوح؟ What the table told you. Okay, so you have two species. How do you find everything else? كيف يلاقي ال H3O+. يلا بلشوا بالسبيشيز. كيف يلاقي ال H3O+. 10 to the negative pH. كان فيه من الأول اكتبها. 10 to the negative 9.5. How can I find HO minus? Go. 10 to the power pH اللي هي 9.5 minus 14. This is HO minus. How can I find H3PO4? H3PO4 is equal to H2PO4 minus times H3O plus divided by Ka1. صح? From Ka1. It's very easy. And you find H3PO4 and it will be very small. Okay? In reality it will be the smallest one لأنه انتو على predominance هون مطرح ما موجودين وين حطينا البوينت هيها انتو أبعد شيء عن ال H3PO4. أكيد هون ال predominance هي لل PO4 3-. انتو أبعد شيء عن ال H3PO4. So the predominant حتبلشوا أعلى شيء ال HPO4 2-, then it's H2PO4-, لأنه هي أقرب وحدة, then it's PO4 3-, then it's H3PO4. So this is H3PO4. بعد عندي بس species واحد اللي هو ال PO4 3-, and this is equal to what? It's equal to HPO4 2- PH3O plus divided by Ka3, and you find all the species. هيدول هن فعليا all the species that you have. Okay? طيب. هل عنده أي question؟ ارفعوا ايدكم if you have a question.